Hello, and welcome back to Logan Sounds Off. Today on my podcast, I'm going to be chatting to the incredible folk artist Joshua Burnside about his new album, Teeth of Time, as well as his past career and all the events that went with it. How are you, Joshua?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, man?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So, starting off, for those who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a singer-songwriter, sort of in the folk sort of side of things, based in Belfast, raised in County Down. Um, and yeah, I've released a few albums so far and toured quite a bit. And yeah, this is my gig.
And it's amazing at that. So before we do get into the interview, if you haven't listened to Joshua Burnside, please do. All links will be down below to his music. So going back to the very start, I know during your childhood you were playing gigs in your teens, I believe it was. It's quite young, and you were in a grunge band as well with some of your mates.
Yeah.
So with all that, you're obviously a big music fan. What kind of music were you listening to, was in the house when you were younger?
Well, the stuff that was in the house growing up, was the stuff my mum and dad listened to. Like classic albums by Simon and Garfunkel and Dylan and just like the classic singer-songwriters. Um, and Fleetwood Mac and things like that. Stuff that was popular in the 70s and 80s as well. And then, but then when I started sort of developing my own sort of taste in music, yeah, it sort of went to the grungy side of things and the punk rock and all that stuff. So we were, listening to Nirvana and Slipknot and Green Day and sort of all the stuff that was. It was like when music TV became like a really big thing, um, in the noughties, and it was like it was like all that stuff, and Kerrang and Scuzz and MTV2. And, I kind of long for those days. Like I love a good music video, and I still do. I spend a lot of time thinking about music videos, and I think it's like a really amazing part of the whole, like releasing the song, and if you can sort of capture the mood or the energy of the song visually, I think that's so powerful together. Um, and it's sort of a shame that there's not as much, thought and money and energy that goes into them as much these days. Um, I think possibly, but yeah, I sort of went on a tangent there.
No, that's really, really interesting. I myself, I love music videos, and I love the music video that you released for Marching Around the Ladies. Like personally, I really, really loved that. And the link to that video will be down below. I'd highly recommend it. It's a really, really heartwarming video. Um and now getting into your early career, when your studio album was being made, you weren't just in Northern Ireland, you were living in Glasgow. And I just wanted to ask, while you were in Glasgow, what was the music scene like?
Yeah, well, I lived in Glasgow. That was many years ago now. That was almost 10 years ago. And the music scene there was amazing at that time. Knew a lot of musicians and bands, and there was always so much going on. So many great venues, and I mean, Glasgow's just a really cool place in general, especially for arty types, musicians and artists. They have the great art school there, and so you get all these really weird indie bands and sort of left of field, sort of artistic types bouncing around, and um, just makes for a lot of interesting music and art. Um, but I only lived there for maybe a couple of years before moving back to Belfast. So I don't know how much it's really had an impact on my music, but certainly the place and the people um, did have an impact on me personally. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh no, that's a cool answer. And then as well, it wasn't just Glasgow. I know you made a lot of Ephrata in Colombia, and
Uh,
you were making a lot of the music there at the time. So how did you find, because I know there's a lot of nearly you can hear some people have mentioned in reviews and different interviews that I've seen, they've mentioned that they've heard a bit of a Colombian influence or Southern
mm,
American influence in there. So I
mm.
wanted to ask you, personally, how do you think being in Colombia making the record affected making the album? Do you think you
Mm.
put a lot of the different influences into the album, or did you not really notice it?
Um, it was a bit of both, I suppose. Like no matter where you go and what you do, you're taking if you're trying to immerse yourself in a culture, and you're just gonna you're just gonna leak its way into what you create. I think either way. And my cousins were living there, and they were showing me musicians, and I was getting really into it. And I started playing the nylon, sort of classical guitar, and that sound in general is just so tied up with that sort of the music of South America. I think that just doing that alone is, is like a brings it to that sort of world. But yeah, the Cumbrian music, the Cumbrian rhythms, and are so fascinating and complicated, and I love I love all that stuff. So um, it's all really percussive based, and um, the everything's really syncopated, and sort of it's like danceable, but it throws you off. It's not simple. Um, and yeah, so I think that still influences me today. Like I don't tend to use really complicated melodies or chords. I'm not really much of a jazz head. I quite like quite simple melodies and simple chords. I love more complicated rhythms and sort of tripping people up that way a little bit more than anything.
That's really, really interesting. And I love that kind of approach of having simple maybe melodies and chords, but then the rhythm, kind of really go crazy with that. And I think that's really, really awesome. And it adds to the experimental side of the folk music that you make. Um, and Efrata was very well received. A lot of people really loved that album. I love that album. I think it's amazing. And it was awarded the Northern Ireland Music Prize Best Album Award in 2017, the year that it came out. When you kind of had got this award, were you surprised that did you think you were going to be getting such an amazing award as this when you're releasing the album?
I was really surprised, yeah. And yeah, it was quite it was amazing thing. I didn't expect that at all, and in certain ways, it's helped me along the path. Um, and I think it's a really important prize, things like that, the NI Music Prize and the Choice Prize and uh, and the other ones, like to give people that little boost and to get praise from your peers and your contemporaries and in the wherever you are in the local music scene, it means a lot. It meant a lot at the time, so and it was amazing for my confidence, I think. But then you can't really like let it affect how your future songwriting. You like taking on board praise can be tricky because then you start piling pressure on yourself, thinking, oh, they really like that album, and next album has to be just as good. And then as soon as you start putting pressure on yourself like that, all of a sudden you've got writer's block, and it's not working. So I'm very cautious about when people say they like something or they're really into it. I just sort of go, yeah, okay.
Fair enough, and I think that's a great approach to making music. And luckily, though, you didn't suffer any writer's block. You made some amazing music on the next album, Wear Bluebells in Your Hat, if you're going that way. And I absolutely loved that title. When I came across it, I just think that's such a creative and cool title. And I believe, because I was listening to Black Dog Sin, your first single, and I
Mm,
think that's one of the lyrics. So
yeah.
why did you think that particular lyric, that little snippet, suited the album as a title?
Excuse me. I honestly can't remember. Um, I don't know. It's a while now. And so the first 5 songs in that album. Well, that album really, I don't really think of that as my second album. Um, More of it's like two EPs that I actually recorded before Feta, that I sort of put together and released on vinyl as like people often like assume it's my second, full length album, but I never think of it like that actually. 'Cause the songs are older than the ones on the Feta, but yeah, I can't really remember why. I just liked the line for an album title. It was sort of whimsical and meandering and mystical, and I guess a lot of the songs on from that record are kind of a bit whimsical and a bit the lyrics are all a bit like that in a way, sort of quite poetic, and there's a searching and like a yearning for something beyond our understanding, I think, in a lot of the lyrics, and trying to, you know, delve into something mystical. And so maybe that's why I felt it was appropriate. But it feels like a lifetime ago.
Well, it's honestly an awesome album, and I think that's really, really cool that it's not really an album, it's two EPs. And I noticed that when I was looking through your discography, going the Ephrata and then the first two kind of EPs in the early 2010s, that I think
Mm.
that's really, really awesome. So again, by the way, if you want to listen to Ephrata or wear bluebells in your hat if you're going that way, all the music that's by Joshua Burnside links down below. So definitely check it out. And we're going to be moving on to a really interesting project of yours that I thoroughly enjoyed listening to. It's an amazing record. Is your live album, because I think
Mm.
the sound of it is really, really cool, and just hearing the atmosphere of one of your gigs is really, really awesome. And it was recorded at the Elmwood Hall. Why did you choose the Elmwood Hall as the venue for your live album?
I'd never played there actually, and my manager at the time, Lyndon Stevens, um, um, who was an amazing guy, passed away a few years ago. But he was he was my first manager, and he took me on and took me under his wing, and he always just had great plans and great ways of scheming up stuff. And it was his idea to record the live album. And I wasn't so sure about it actually. I felt like you'd have to be sort of a big name already to record a live album, but he was like, "No, it'll be a great idea, and um, I'll put out the record and get it all sorted." And he chose the Elmwood Hall, and I thought it was a great idea to play there because it's right in the city centre of Belfast, well, up Lisburn Road, or sorry, up University. Where is it? Up that way, anyway. But it's like, yeah, it's a great spot and it's a beautiful building, and yeah, we decided to film bits of it and make a little short documentary, and it turned out really well. And I actually mixed the record, and in the end, I wasn't so sure about it. I wasn't so keen on it, but Lyndon convinced me to put it out anyway, and I'm really happy that I did because a lot of people that come to my gigs, they often say it's their favorite record of mine, because they just like the vibe of it and the energy. They can feel the energy in the room, and the songs are sort of there's no like mucking around with fancy production or weird stuff going on like in some of the records. It's just the songs being played by a band, quite straight up, and um, some people just prefer that. They don't want any mucking around. They just want the songs. So I don't know. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic album. I really, really loved it. And then as well after an amazing record and also a B-side record as well. On top of that, you had a great album cycle there. You went on to In the Half Light, which is a really, really interesting EP. I love the cover of it. And I thought it's an interesting EP because this was very close to a studio album, but you weren't alone on this particular EP. This is a project that you did with Laura Quirk of Lemoncello. Interview with Lemoncello will be down below, and also the my other episodes with Lemoncello, all that will be down below. But how did this come about working with Laura?
Um, so I met Laura and Claire actually at a Clonakilty Guitar Festival years ago. Um, we were both we were being put up by the festival in a big gaff just outside of the town. She had to get a little bus to, and there was a little local pub right beside um, the house, and it was sort of might have been the last night of the festival or whatever, and we decided to go in and see if there was any crack in the wee pub, and Laura was there, and pints were had, and there was an old guitar knocking around, and we decided to play a few songs. I think the guitar only had about three strings on it, but Laura sang a song, and I was just gobsmacked. It was just so beautiful, and I just thought, right, someday, someday I'm gonna work with Laura because I was just the voice. Um, it's just a wonderful voice, and she's a fantastic songwriter and beautiful lyrics, beautiful melodies. And Lemoncello have been a big influence on me ever since. Um, so yeah, and then she would be up to Belfast quite a bit with the Duncairn Creative Collective, which is a collective of songwriters and musicians and artists and trad musicians that come together once a year to sort of workshop ideas. It'll be starting this weekend actually.
Sorry, Joshua, I think your phone's frozen. Uh,
Oh,
sorry, your phone froze there, I think.
oh,
Yeah, sorry.
I,
Um,
how far did you get?
uh, I got to about I'd say where we kind of cut off was when Laura was going up to Belfast and stuff, and you were speaking about an event that's going on this weekend, but I didn't quite catch it. You were starting to break up. So if you just want to continue there. Uh,
No, yeah, no worries. So yeah, we met up at a thing called the Duncairn Creative Collective, which happens once a year in Belfast, and we wrote one song together. Well, it's actually I had a song in mind which I thought she could sing on, and she had a song in mind which she thought I could sing on, and produce. And then so we had two songs, so we thought we may as well make an EP and put an extra couple in there. And we recorded it in my little studio space in East Belfast, and it was all very easy, very natural, and everything just came about very easily and quickly. And it was a joy to work with Laura. Would like to do something again in the future.
that's really, really awesome. And it's cool to hear that you still have there's still a lasting impact with Lemoncello on your music because Lemoncello are an incredible group. I loved the album and it was great to actually meet them. I met them last year at Merchie
Mm.
Christmas. So it was cool to meet them in person. I love to meet my interviews in person. And
Yeah.
then since then there hasn't been a studio album since 2021, but you have an upcoming album called Teeth of Time, and it's your first in nearly 5 years now, and not exactly, but nearly 5 years. So I know you've been releasing some music, but non-album releases and
Mm.
stuff like that, and the occasional single. But what was it like getting back into the studio to record an album?
Um, yeah, well, to go back into the studio is like I've always recorded most of my own stuff myself. To call my space a studio maybe is a stretch of the imagination. It's not what you would deem a typical recording studio, but I make it work. Excuse me, I have an awful cold I'm trying to get rid of,
It's
um,
okay.
and but yeah, so I had a temporary space in the city centre, which was basically an office studio that um I started recording the album in 2023 or 2024, and but I've been sitting on songs that I've been writing the whole time throughout the years, and hundreds and hundreds of demos. Um, and yeah, I just started working my way through them. I mean, having a kid slowed things down, I think, which is good. You know, I like to have the time, the family time, and all that crack. But it was also nice to get back into it, and I love my work, so and but I didn't mind taking it a bit slower. Um, as long as I get the odd, as long as I'm writing the songs, like that's the fun. That's the fun part for me is when I'm deep into the songwriting process and I'm trying to figure it out and um, piece together a song. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. And then having that extra time um to write and make demos, how did you find the writing process of did you find it nearly hard to bring all these different tracks from very different times and parts of your life in to create this one album, or did they just kind of click? Were they all quite similar, the different writing styles? It was easy to
Mm.
kind of arrange.
Um, yeah, it was yes and no. I sort of have this process where I gather up all these songs that I've written over a number of years, and then I start to record them. And sometimes the ones that I demoed, I thought this is going to be great. This is definitely going to be an album, possibly a single. And then when it hits the microphones and I try and produce it and whatever, it just falls flat in its face. And other tracks do the opposite, where it was a throwaway bit of a verse that I was like, that's an idea, whatever, and I could bring that into the studio and start mucking around with it, and it becomes like one of the sort of better songs on the album. So, um, and then by the time it's starting to look like an album, maybe about 3 or 4 months before, my deadline,
Your video's frozen, Joshua.
possibly.
I you're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Oh dear.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. You were just speaking about your writing process there and taking verses and kind of mucking about with it and changing it up.
Um, yeah, but yeah. So some songs you think are going to be duds, and they become important bits of the album, and some others kind of you think are going to be great actually like when you record them. So it's a lot of trial and error, and then when I get the sort of a collection of songs which I think looks like the album, 4 months before the deadline of when I need to have the songs finished, I always have this mad panic, and I scrap about half the album and write a load of new songs in a sort of mad panic, and because I listen to it and I think this isn't good enough, and I do this every time. I think I used to think it was like an insecurity thing, but I think no, it's just a part of my process. A very last
Yeah,
minute, just sort of like, no, I can do better kind of thing.
that's really, really interesting. And I think that's a cool way to make an album to have old kind of thoughts being refreshed but kept at the same time. It really brings the best out of both worlds. And then when people are going to buy this album, the first thing that they're going to see is the fantastic album art and the name Teeth of Time. And I just wanted to ask you, where did that name come from? What was it inspired from?
There's actually an old lyric that I'd used from one of my oldest songs, and in the song I was referring to the sort of um, the ocean sort of gnawing at the cliffs, these white crests of waves that like gnaw on the shoreline, and sort of drawing this comparison with the sea and time. Um, and then I always liked the phrase, the alliteration, and so I used the lyric again in the title track of the album, the first track, um, but in a more literal reference to the teeth of time sort of gnawing on us all as we get older, and sort of nibbling away at us. Um, in particular, I have quite bad back problems that flare up from time to time. Sometimes it feels like I'm being chewed on by some malevolent monster. But so yeah, I just thought it kind of sums up what a lot of the songs are about, which is just about growing older and getting on with things and making do while time nibbles away each day. Um, yeah, if that, I hope that sums it up.
Yeah, that really does. That's an amazing explanation. So I really love that answer. Thank you. And we've spoke about the upcoming album now. So before we get into my last question, I'd just like you to tell everybody about some of your upcoming gigs and when the album is coming out and where they can find everything.
Yeah, so the album will be out the 20th of February. Um, Sorry, the album will be out on the 28th of February, and it'll be all over the place in all the usual places. You can buy the vinyls directly from me on Bandcamp, which is the best way. If you want to really support artists, and we'll have t-shirts and all the rest of it as well, and CDs. But you can listen to it on YouTube and Spotify, and um, yeah, all the usual places. The tour we'll be touring around the UK and Ireland and Europe as well. Um, this half of the year, March and April, and we'll be in Germany and France and Belgium and Netherlands in June. So please come along to those. It'll be my first sort of headline European tour, so I'm dead excited about that. And yeah, I'll be in Aberdeen. The first gig of the tour is in Aberdeen on the 27th of February. I don't know when
Brilliant.
this goes out, but yeah.
Of course, it'll be coming out fairly soon, I think. So if you want to pre-save that, the link to pre-save the album will be down below. If you want to check out any of Joshua's gigs or upcoming news, his social media will be linked down below as well. So make sure to check that out. And as Joshua correctly said, get the vinyl, get the CD. If you have a player at your house, it really does support the artist and always get merch. So, before we finish up, Joshua, I just wanted to ask you about what music recommendations would you have for the listener? Joshua, I think your phone's frozen again. Uh, there we go. We're back again. Perfect. So sorry, what I was just going to ask you about was, as our final question before we leave the conversation, what music recommendations would you have for the listener or the viewer?
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think what I've been listening to recently. I think I've been listening to a lot of trad, so um, great trad record is Brightly or Darkly by Nathan Gurley and Laura Fedderson. Um, and then singy stuff. Um, what have I been listening to? Trying to think what's on in the car at the minute. I have a Joni Mitchell album in the car at the minute, and then oof, when someone puts you on the spot and you just you just can't think. Um,
Sorry.
um, what have I been listening to? I've been enjoying something amazing recently, and I can't think what it is right now. But I will. Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that.
That's fine, but I would check out some of those recommendations. Obviously, Joni Mitchell's an incredible artist, and I'll take note of that trad album and I'll have a listen to it, and I'll let you know my thoughts because I'm getting into trad a lot at the moment, so I'd love to
That's
have a listen. But before we go, guys, if you do watch me a lot, please subscribe. It helps so much, and if you like it, please show your support by liking. Follow Joshua on all social media platforms so you're staying up to date, and make sure to listen to him wherever you get your music. Thank you so much, Joshua, for joining me on the podcast. Teeth of Time is coming out February 28th. Make sure to check out the live gigs and all the merch as well. Buy it on vinyl if you can. Joshua, it's been great to speak to you. Really excited for the new album to come out. I love it. Can't wait to get it on vinyl and everything.
nice one. Cheers, no. Nice chatting to you.
Nice chatting to you too, Joshua. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Cheers, man. All the best. Bye bye.